and surgical patient. She is a wife, mother, and born again child of the Most High King.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Family Health Matters. I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers, and we are live here on Awesome Radio 106.9. Hear it. You hear it? Okay. Um, we're here every Thursday on Family Health Matters from 3 to 3:30 p.m. We are so excited that you're here with us on today. And I have with me in the studio live with me my friend and colleague, Dr. Liz Elizabeth Mazzeo. It's been a while since she's been here with me, but since then she has received her PhD. I'm so proud of her. She's my friend. And so today we're going to be talking about something that really dear to me, and it's called staying safe in extreme heat. Well, extreme heat is usually considered a long period of time of 2 to 3 days of temperature being greater than 90 degrees with lots of heat humidity. And I would say this is what's going on now. Wouldn't you agree, Liz?
Absolutely. It's hot out there.
It is hot out there, and it's supposed to continue to be hot out there. So that's why we wanted to talk about that, being safe with ourselves, with our families, and with our children, and even with our pets. Mm-hmm. So Liz, tell me, I know you are really into environment and environmental things and being safe. So that's one reason why I asked you about coming, because I know your background. So tell me in your own words why you think this is an important topic that we need to discuss today.
Absolutely. Wendy, we were just speaking about some diseases that were preventable and why preventing disease is so important. And heat illness or diseases caused by being out in the heat are 100% preventable. So it's something that we can really do a lot to make sure it doesn't happen. And it is out there. We don't think about it a lot, but heat illness is one of the most common weather related issues. We think a lot about flooding and droughts and things like that because they're so like in your face, but we forget about heat sometimes as and how dangerous it can be.
Yeah. And I understand that that's one of the leading causes of death that's not related to like medical conditions, but environmental conditions, that the heat extreme illnesses can cause those complications like heat strokes. And we'll talk about those in a little bit, and heat cramps, those things as we move through the broadcast. So as we discuss this, who's most at risk that would be more prone to have some type of heat illnesses?
Yeah, there's two main groups that are at risk for heat illnesses, and those are, one group is children and older adults, and they're at risk because their bodies aren't as good at cooling off. Our bodies do a lot to cool us down, through sweat and dilating our blood vessels and things like that. But children and older adults, their bodies aren't as good at that. The other group, I think it's a little more obvious when you think about it, but those are the people that do things outside. Those are your farmers and your farm workers. Those are your people in high school band. They're walking a lot outside. Any worker really that works outside on a consistent basis, that's the other group. And that's just because they're exposed more to that heat, and they're also working their bodies more, which generates more heat when they're outside.
Yeah. And the thin skin on the elderly and on the the little children, and their thought process sometimes of not being able to feel or sense how hot it is. And
Right.
I'm glad you brought out the point about the second group with the the school children,
Mhm.
the band, the marching bands, and sometimes even with football players,
Yep.
when they're out in the heat practicing, for football games, and then not being hydrated and not getting enough water. Because I think I remember when my children were in school and did, the band and the football, they are so in tune to just being on that marching field and how long they can put in time and march around the field.
Yep.
And if somebody is not constantly reminding them that they need to hydrate, they need to go get something to drink or something, or find the shade for a little while, then that increases the risk for
Yep.
that. Yeah, so that's good. And farm workers. So what, I know you said farm workers. So what would put them more at risk other than the fact that they're out in the sun working those long hours?
Yeah. Farmers or farm workers, anybody out there, particularly when they work in the rows, like, around here, we grow a lot of tobacco and sweet potatoes, but their water tends to be far away from where
Mm,
they're actually working. So, athletes and band members, usually their water is right there with them the whole time. But with people in agriculture and maybe some other occupations, they have to kind of move around long distances. So their water, which is a critical tool to keeping people cool and to prevent heat illnesses, it can be far away from them. So they
right.
have to really even take extra effort to go walk the distance to go get that water.
Yeah, I guess say out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And what about the people that works in factories? That may have air conditioning, but they are actually in a facility.
Yeah. In United States, we don't think about it too much that people that work inside would be at risk for heat and illnesses because we have such a great occupational oversight, from but there are still lots of factories in the United States that have extreme temperatures on the inside, and up in outside of Ahoskie, North Carolina, there's some steel mills.
Hmm.
I always say that with a country accent, steel mills. But they produce steel there, and it gets incredibly hot in those facilities. And of course, they have lots of things set up to protect their workers, but they're still at great risk for heat illness. So anywhere, maybe under a shelter that doesn't have air conditioning or any kind of working facility like that, even though it's technically inside, it could still get very hot.
Yeah, yeah. And moving around quite, often, and not thinking about taking a water break or anything like that. So what can we do? Or so what are some interventions that we can help prevent us from becoming overheated?
Yeah, the rule that always comes to my mind because I work a lot, I do a lot of occupational health things is the rule from the Occupational Safety and Health Association, the OSHA, if you've heard of that before, and their short saying is rest, water, shade. So even in our discussion already, we've already talked about those three things, but they're critical pieces to keeping you safe when you're working in the heat. So you have to take the time out to take breaks. You can be a great worker, but not want to take breaks. But it's very important. Drinking lots of water, lots more than you'd actually think you'd need.
Hmm.
Um, and then making sure that those breaks that you are taking are in cooler areas. So it does allow your body time to cool down.
Okay, great. So, and I was thinking about that with I like that, the rest, the water, the shade, even not just people that are working in those environments, just everyday life.
Mhm.
When we're out moving around, when we're shopping, or when we're even just out. A lot of us, which I'm proud of, start trying to do more walking.
Yep.
But even in walking, to look at the timing of when you should be out there walking. And I was just with one of my friends on yesterday, and we were walking from one of the buildings to the next, and I stopped to talk to somebody, and I looked up, and she was gone, and she said I had to find the shade. So I thought about that in preparing for the show today. I thought about, when you're out there, you need to look for shade. Not just because you're out there working, but even just in walking around. If you can walk in the shade versus out in the hot sun, then it's ideal to try to get yourself into the shade.
Yeah. I mean, everybody loves being outside. I know I do.
Uh-huh.
And in the South, I think we have a lot of trees, so we're lucky that we can find shade. But anything creative that we can use to find that shade
Yeah.
is helpful.
Yeah. And another thing that, I some people may think that they may be a little embarrassed to do, but I've seen people with umbrellas,
Yeah.
and
Walking. Yep.
yeah, and I thought about, that's a sense of shade. We always think about umbrellas with rain, but so I'm encouraging people, you got an umbrella in your car and you're going to be out there walking, grab
Yep.
that umbrella and don't
It
be
protects our
ashamed.
skin too,
Yeah, yeah,
from
yeah.
the rays of the sun. So
Mhm.
it's like a double,
Mhm.
it's a double
Yeah.
good thing.
Yeah, because I tell you, sometimes you don't know about having sunburn until it actually has happened, and
Mhm.
then you're not having a whole nother issue going on because you've got sunburn now, where you could have helped prevent that. Good, good. So, what's some more interventions that we? I like that rest, water, and shade.
Yep.
So, what's some more interventions that you like to share with us about staying protective and preventing heat illnesses?
Well, believe it or not, I when I was learning more about heat and how it affects our bodies, I was surprised to find that air condition is almost it's not just like nice to have. It actually is what will keep you safe. Again, we don't think about it maybe here in the United States, but some people don't live without air conditioning. But there is for heat, you actually after a certain level, a fan or breeze or something, it actually will do very little to cool your body.
Oh,
So if you're in really hot climates, you really need that air condition because I know there's some people that don't like to run it, some people that don't have it. Um, and some people that think fans are good too, but over I believe it's like 90 degrees or so, a fan won't help prevent heat illness. So you can have it on, but you've got to have that air conditioner at least a little bit. So if you're one of those people that likes to save on your energy bill and not run it really high, you can consider going to places that do provide air conditioning on a consistent basis, like movie theaters and grocery stores and malls. So if you can find transportation to get there or walk there or wherever, on those really hot days, you really do need air condition
hmm.
um, to help protect your bodies. So that surprised me because I like to keep my air pretty high. Like I keep it on, I don't know, 75 or so. And I think some people think that's pretty hot. But it is, air conditioning is a very important thing. So, um, and then with water, the rule with that surprised me is that you should not wait until you're thirsty to
Hmm.
drink. I know we're all really busy and we're like, okay, I'm thirsty, I'm going to drink now. But really, particularly in the heat, you need to drink the whole time. And every 15 minutes or so in the really hot days is what they recommend. But our bodies, if our body is telling us we're thirsty, then it's already too late. Like
Oh,
we're
okay.
already dehydrated.
Okay. Because if you started feeling the thirst, then you beyond the point. Okay, that's good. Well,
Yeah.
let's go back and let's talk a little bit more about the fan and versus the air conditioning. And so, what creative thoughts? Because really, in the real world, some people may not have
Yeah.
an air condition, and all they have is a fan, and going to the local library or to the grocery store or somewhere just to cool off is not always feasible.
Hmm.
So what do we do to help families when we're thinking about that? Anything that comes to mind that you can think of, as with your expertise in environmental,
Yeah.
what are you some thoughts about, water? And I know you talk about drinking water, but what about just using cool cloths and things? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah. Anything we can do to cool our bodies. Wet cloths would work. Making sure we're wearing, lighter clothes
Hmm.
inside of our house. That's one thing I always forget is to wear, thinner clothes. That's easy. Like this shirt's pretty thin, but then I remember that lighter colored clothes are better when it's hot. So when you're inside, think of that. So wear wear lighter clothes inside. Use cool, wet rags to wet yourself down. You can get good shades for your house to prevent heat coming in, and then just keep your house as cool as you can. So if you can avoid running the oven, you don't have to tell me twice not to turn my oven on.
I know that's right.
But particularly in the summer,
Yeah,
when it's
yeah.
hot, try not to run anything that's going to produce a lot of electricity. So, sometimes even like computers make things really hot. So, keeping all those fans on and then keeping some of your electrical components off
Yeah.
if possible.
Yeah, and I think those are just some, the fundamentals, some things that we just can do that we have availability in the home because some people may not have all those options, but they still need to stay safe. And I think one of the things that we haven't touched on is about the fact of intervention of checking on each other, making sure that we are actually checking on each other. Going over there, if you got a senior citizen that's a neighbor, or if you got family members that are older, then you need to be going over and checking on them. And then this is oh, we got a caller. Let's see. Let's hold on. Let's see what our caller is. Hello, caller. This is Family Health Matters. You're on the air.
Hey, how are you? How are you ladies doing today?
We're doing fine. We're doing wonderful. Trying to stay cool out of this extreme heat.
I tell you what, I'm empathetic towards people who don't like the hot weather. All I can say is, once upon a time, it might be 92 now, but it was 29 not long ago, and I just can't do that 29. I was at 92. I love the heat. I'm careful when I'm out in it.
Yeah.
But I'm just a heat guy. I really am. Great show. I finally got a chance to get in the car to listen.
Wonderful.
Let me ask you guys a question here.
Sure.
Is a when we were growing up, we didn't die in the heat. We were out playing football. Mom and Dad, Mom would leave us in the car. We would be doing all kinds of stuff, and we didn't hear about certain things. Are people nowadays, because we grow up under air conditioning, are people now less tolerant to the weather, or is it because we got more extreme weather than we had in the 80s growing up? What's the deal on that?
Great question. Great question. I'm gonna let Liz take a stab at it, and then I'm gonna bounce off of her. All right, Liz, what's your thoughts on that?
He brings up a lot of good points. The first is acclimation. So our bodies get used to certain conditions. So those farm workers that I speak of, they slowly adjust their bodies to those extreme heats, working outside all day long, and their bodies are used to it. So if me, person who teaches nursing and stays inside air conditioned, did their job, my body would I would fall to a heat illness. I'd probably have a heat illness if I did that, because our bodies over time can get used to that. So when we didn't have air condition, our bodies were used to that, and we adjusted over time. But this takes several weeks to do. So yeah, we didn't get hurt back then. You don't have to have air conditioning to survive, but you do have to get used to it, and you have to be very careful and slowly introduce yourself to those hot temperatures. And then the second part, I love to hear that about the extreme weather that we're experiencing now. That is true. We do have more days that are hotter, particularly in the last decade, the last 10 years. There's been a lot hotter days, but and those are just going to slowly build over time. We'll have a little more hot days. So it's just something we'll have to get used to and plan for.
Yeah, I think that's part of the climate change and the environment changes that's happening around, not just here in the United States, but all around, and trying to just adjust to that. And I think part of it is that we've killed a lot of trees, and a lot of trees that's normally out there. We've built a lot more homes and a lot more industries. So some of that protection that we used to have from the sun is gone. So the sun rays or heat rays are stronger. So that increases our risk of heat illnesses. Great question.
Hey, thank you for entertaining my question. I believe that because of that, we got to change, and some parents got to let their kids get out there and roll around in the grass.
Absolutely.
Be more tolerant to things as they get older, and as well getting yourself adjusted to the heat. I didn't say get out there and bake yourself like you're a turkey or something, but life has biological consequences as well, and everybody ain't built to stay up in the air conditioning.
Absolutely.
We're not supposed to drive to the store every time we go to the store. Yep. That's what happens. We have to go to the Planet Fitness to exercise rather than getting it in our community.
Absolutely.
I ain't trying to advertise. I probably shouldn't have said that. I'm gonna get in trouble. I'm gonna let y'all go. Great show.
Thank you. Thank you
time,
so much.
Okay?
Thank you so much for your time and calling in. You have a great one. Stay safe. All
right, you too. All right, bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Great question. Great question. And he's exactly right that we do allow, because we're talking about family health matters, we do allow our children to stay indoors quite a bit because it is hot outside. And I'm not saying you need to send them out there and make them stay out there, but I think, allowing them some fresh air. And the school systems have sort of cut out recess that we used to have when we were growing up. So a lot of things have changed, and children are a little bit more vulnerable to the heat than what it was when we were growing up. Because I remember that you were outdoors more than you were inside. You were outside until the sunset, and now everybody's in the house. So I agree with that. We need to send some of the children outside. We have to let them go outside and roll around in the dirt and get used to it. So great question. Great question. Yeah. So did we talk about all the interventions? We talked about the cool showers, the baths, sponge baths, using the air conditioning, of course, and remembering to check on each other. And then people that may have illnesses already that's not heat related, but just are sick, we need to make sure that, they have what they need, and making sure that they are being monitored and taken care of. So I think those are the big interventions that we could do. So just really talk really quickly about heat cramps. I know people talk about heat cramps. Tell us a little bit about what you know about heat cramps.
Yeah, that's the part of heat, like the umbrella of heat illnesses. That's one of them, is heat cramps, and people get those pretty often. And luckily, they're pretty easy to treat. Usually,
so how do you get a heat cramp? So let's go all the way back.
Yeah, so that's a combination. It could be either dehydration, or it could be that you're losing a lot of salt in your sweat. So it could be one or the other, or both, and that's what causes the cramp or the pain to occur. It's like a muscle spasm.
Okay.
So the interventions for it are just like the cause. Like, you either need to drink more water, or you need to replace what we call in nursing, we say electrolytes, right?
Yes.
You need to replace the salt and potassium and things that you sweat out while you're outside or while you're real hot.
And I know one time, and I know you're probably going to say this in the next one, but people talk about eating salt, taking extra salt. And I know that's something that we need to be careful about, because you were just talking about electrolytes, because we're supposed to keep our electrolyte balanced. And if you go to one extreme to the other, doesn't fix the problem. You may increase the problem.
Right. Yeah. Another thing that surprised me when I was learning more about Latino farm workers is they have these like little electrolyte packets. And I just wasn't used to that culturally growing up, because when I grew up, we had Gatorade, right? If we ever thought we needed to, like when we were working, playing soccer or whatever, we would drink a Gatorade. And that is one thing that will replace electrolytes. But some people will take either salt tablets, like they look like big pills, or they'll even take like a little packet, like it almost looks like a salt packet, like a sugar packet from the store. But on it is actually salt. Inside of it is salt mostly. And they'll put it inside of a drink or something like that. And that's okay. That can replace your salt and be good. But most people drink either way too many of them. And like you said, they'll do too much because believe it or not, in our diets, we eat plenty of salt in our diet. So we don't normally need a whole lot of salt tablets or Gatorades or anything like that.
Yeah. Good. So let's really, because time is running down. Let's talk a little bit about car safety.
Okay. Yeah. When I was looking at the stats of the deaths from heat, I was like, how many children? Because I think most people realize, that it's always on the news if someone gets hurt from being inside of a car that's trapped inside of a car from heat. So we hear about it a lot, and it's incredibly sad. But it still happens. And so, that has to become a habit, just like putting your seatbelt on. It has to become a habit. Even if you drive by yourself 90% of the time, always looking in your back seat, in your side seats for your children, for other passengers, for your pets. And some cars will even warn you now. Like it has like weight sensors. And my aunt's car was beeping. I was like, why is it beeping? And it was telling you to look in the back seat. So I think that's a nice thing of technology, but just making sure you have that habit, because even after 2, 3, 4 minutes, a car can become so hot that it's unbearable and unhealthy.
Right. I was reading somewhere and it said, look before you lock.
Oh.
So I read that it's a look before you lock, because, you get so used and we're so fast trying to move and, you don't think about the fact that you left somebody in the car. Make sure you check on that. Wow, time is running out. So one of the things, symptoms. What's the symptom? We need to talk really quickly about symptoms. What are some symptoms, some things that we need to watch
So the
for?
really bad one we didn't talk about, we didn't have a lot of time to talk, was heat stroke. And the one that really helps that's happening is that they pass out or they become unconscious, and then their skin is really, really hot to the touch. So if you ever notice that you have to call 911 right away, because heat stroke is just like a regular stroke, a brain stroke. So the quicker you get them to the hospital and taken care of, then their brain won't be damaged from the heat.
Okay. Wow. We are running out of time. So Liz, thank you so much for joining us today, talking about the extreme heat. So we want to make sure that we are watching and staying safe during these extreme heat times. So again, I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers, and we are here every Thursday from 3 to 3:30 on Family Health Matters, Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. So make sure that you stay safe, watch out for each other, check your cars before you lock the doors, drink plenty of liquids, hydrate. And if you think you're having a problem, give your doctor a call. All right. Thank you again for watching us on Facebook and for listening to us on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers.
This is Pastor David Council. You're listening to WBIS Awesome Radio 106.9 on your FM dial.